Pasamos a la siguiente presentación. En este caso nos la va a realizar Richard Poynder. Richard Poynder es el director de la Higher Education Smart Card Association, es decir, de la asociación de usuarios, pero no de usuarios de Campus Car, como existe en algunos países, como Estados Unidos, que es la ANACU. En el caso de Reino Unido es de usuarios, pero de tarjeta inteligente, es decir, de aquellas universidades que utilizan una habilidad adicional a la mera banda magnética, es decir, que utilizan chip para en su propia Campus Car. Richard está muy activo al respecto. Hay varias universidades aquí participantes en las reuniones periódicas que organiza HESCA. Algunas de vosotros, como Samuel o Reino, habéis hecho presentación también en HESCA al respecto, y nos acompañan hoy las universidades de Nottingham Trent, Cardiff Metropolitan y Roehampton de Reino Unido. Y bueno, pues ya sin más cedo la palabra a Richard. Richard nos va a hablar de cashless, soluciones cashless en las universidades. Para aquellos que no entendáis el inglés, tenéis traducción simultánea. Si no lo hubieseis recogido el dispositivo, tenéis el dispositivo a la entrada donde lo podéis tomar. Okay, a las azafatas se lo podéis solicitar. Okay. Muchas gracias, Richard.
Hello, everybody. Mr. Chairman, thank you for those kind words of introduction. I didn't understand any of them. I would like to say good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I know it's afternoon, really, but in England, anything you do before lunch is morning. I have a wristwatch which shows I'm an old person. I also came, as you see, dressed for your cold Spanish weather. So with your permission, I'm going to lose a few. It's a great pleasure and privilege to address you with this short presentation. You see the X on the right-hand corner. That's where I come from, near a city called Cambridge. And the picture on the left is one of our newer universities. It was started in the 1254, I think. It is the oldest university in Cambridge. It's called Peterhouse. And you can imagine putting the access control system in there was a little challenge for us. I'm going to talk about cashless campuses for the next few minutes. You better understand a little bit more about my country. We have a population of 63.5 million, plus about 2 million people called illegal immigrants. We don't know how many they are, but they're in our country. We have 162 proper universities and a lot more higher education colleges, which I haven't counted. And here's a photograph of the only day in the year when the students look smart, graduation day. There are 2.4 million of them at those universities. So the average is, I think, about 14,000. Of those universities, about 110 have, for a number of years, been using smart cards, along with tags and tokens and key fobs. In fact, their pockets have been full of cards. One or two of them have been smart. That's a problem. Of those 110 universities, maybe 20, a few more, have what I call a full smart campus card system, where they've tried to replace all the other cards and key fobs with one smart card that supports a wide range, nearly 20 different functions. During this presentation, I'm going to give you some views. They are personal views, a few tips and tricks. At the top left, you will see a picture of a typical English campus card with a very old student photograph. You will see that there is a barcode. Yes, we have multi-technology in our country that is normally still used for libraries where it's more difficult to get smart card readers installed. And on the back, we have the good old magnetic stripe reader for those universities who continue to have magnetic stripe door access. But they are rapidly moving towards, here's the key word, contactless, usually memory, cards for their smart campus card. Here's a tip. Call your card a name. One university said, we have a great name, we'll call it the ID card, a real marketer's dream expression. I like the word pass because it is a pass and it also gives the student the idea that they will pass, but nobody's used it yet, so I'm very sad. If you're a new university, we would advise you to use DesFire technology. Most of our universities traditionally still use MyFair Classic. It has been compromised. That's usually not a problem, but it can cause, here's an expression, reputational damage. So any new university is trying to use DesFire products. Then they find out that all of their MyFair door lock mechanisms won't read a DesFire card, so there are lots of little challenges there. You've read all of those in my language. I'm sorry, my Spanish is not so good. The one that's interesting there is attendance monitoring. I have just completed consultancy for a university that has put readers on 400 doors so that the students tap their cards when they go into their class. So this helps with accreditation that they have attended lectures. It also helps the British government with non-EU students that they're actually attending the university that they applied for. Although the agency that was doing this, very popular agency, has just been killed by the government, but they will find another one to do the same job. So that's a very interesting application. Let me give you another tip. You don't need to put much data in the chip of the card. Universities have great networks. Almost every point of card use can be networked to a center. So the more modern systems used at universities have about 8 fields of data in the chip of the card, and that's all. The card is a key to get to services. So I'm trying to devalue the card and talk more about the systems that are supported by the card, because that's where the issues and problems are. There is another little problem. Maybe you're different here in Spain or in your countries. UK universities do everything very, very slowly. Always with committees. They always last 1 hour, this is the rule, and they take 2 years to make a decision. And the main problem is explaining to the guys in charge what a smart card is and why we are doing this. The students get it in 2 seconds, but many of the academics in the universities, boy, it's a barrier to try and make them understand what we're trying to do. And I'm not going to tell you that today, that's not my job. Yes, students sometimes want to clean their clothes. That's a difficult concept. We even have some universities who have made e-payments for their laundries, for their washing machines. It's not a very common application. The top 5 on the left, maybe number 6 as well, are the most common applications in the UK. We talk about cashless campus. That's a bad expression because there is no cashless campus in the UK. I went to Holland, the Netherlands, the other day, and there I went to a university. When you walk through the door, you can't use cash anymore. Everything is done on the card. But it's kind of different because the cards, when I saw it, used the national e-purse scheme, so everybody had that product. They also had a student card, but everybody used the national card to pay for vending machines. And here are the main types of point of payment that any less cash university, that's what I like to call them. The most common is for catering, mainly for drink, but sometimes also for food and vending machines. Here's a little problem we have. Most catering system suppliers already provide a card system and the software. Now I go to those suppliers and I say, my university wants to use this payment system for all of these other types of payment. And he either says, thank you, that will be 50,000 euros for me to adapt my system, or he says, I can't do that. So do I change my catering system, or do I force the guy to adapt his system? Because very often it is the catering system that becomes the hub e-payment system for all the other types of payment. So you can see the obvious ones. Vending machines. I didn't see a card reader on the vending machines outside. There's an interesting question. Printing and photocopying, a big, big area for payment. And it's really difficult because, again, the owners of these systems don't always want to work with somebody else's e-payment system. It's quite a complex area. In the libraries, of course, you use the card maybe to get into the library or to pay for things in the library, to pay for printing and photocopying. And in England, I don't know if it's the same here, to pay your fines because you forgot to bring the book back. And yes, we have 3M machines and we have automated book issuing and return, of course. Sometimes the students, if they're lucky, are permitted to park in the car parks. Not always true. Of course, then you have car parking payments. And again, the car parking payment supplier, the system supplier, is very difficult to convince to convert his system to use a single e-payment product. The bus transits, a lot of universities have their own bus services to move the students around. That's no problem. That's quite easy. However, if we want to put public transport into our system and use the card for that, it's really, really difficult because the UK has a national specification for all buses, public transport buses to use, and that's quite expensive, complex, and you have to squeeze it into your university card. So that's a bit of an issue. Very rare that that's happened. In the campus, there are third-party shops, booksellers, stationers. Those can join in the system. We have just done one with a couple of booksellers, and they're really happy to be part of this system. We've also included bursaries and the accounting for that within that system. There are many others, as I explained before. So you can imagine a campus has many points of payment. Typically, in the UK, we have closed-loop systems. That is to say, the university has a central e-payment system, whether it's in the university or in a server somewhere else. People load value to it. On the left, of course, it's very important that the students can see the balances of their accounts, maybe produce reports to see what they've spent their money on. And then the difficult part, you have the various types of point of payment, each of which must have a reader. And that's a typical system in the UK, and 80% of the central systems started life as catering systems, cashless catering systems. So the real problem is getting the readers and the networking for all of those other functions. I haven't time to tell you the details of closed-loop schemes, but you will see a number of advantages: control by the university, the use of the cash float, which can be a lot of money. That's the electric money that they've collected from students, and a few disadvantages. The students can't use the payment system outside the campus. There is one product in the UK called Squid, which is actually semi-open loop. You can use the cards if you can find a retailer with a Squid reader. They're very rare. We don't know whether that system will succeed or not. That's what most British universities have done with less cash campuses. However, the banks in the UK are very keen that everybody will use their new contactless enabled EMV credit and debit cards. And there is great pressure on universities to use what I will call open loop systems. You can imagine many advantages and disadvantages. The student probably already has one, or we give him one when he comes to the campus, and you can see where Santander fits into that, but I will say a few words about that later. There are some disadvantages. The particular disadvantage is when I lose my card, what do I do for the week it takes me to get a replacement card? That's a real issue. If it's a closed loop system, you can get a replacement card in about 5 minutes. And that's a real issue for us. When I came to Madrid yesterday and I went round a university, I actually changed my view about Santander and this marvelous stuff it's done. 262 universities, and I applaud that. Then I found that the system that the students used at that university wasn't an open loop debit card contactless. It was actually a contact-based, closed loop, proprietary e-purse system where the value was stored in the chip of the card and nowhere else. And everything was contact. Here's a tip to Santander universities. When you proceed in the United Kingdom, learn about what the British universities need and want. Look at some of the perceived disadvantages. Make sure that we don't all have to have EMV readers at every point of payment. Look at the costs. Look at who pays the merchant discount. Once you have understood that, I think you should have a great future in our country, but not yet. Okay. I must finish very quickly. We are very slow in the UK to do this. Some of the barriers, I'm sorry to say this, it's the IT department. It's also the professors who don't understand. It's the IT department because they do understand, and they have a real problem because they have old legacy systems, and it's very hard for them to introduce new ways of payment and new uses for smart cards, and that has been a real barrier. The suppliers are all thieves and cheats, and of course they want you to use their system forever and use their cards. Another tip, never buy your smart cards from a software supplier and you pay 5, 6, 7 euros. You can buy a Desfire fully encoded, personalized card from a reputable bureau in England for under €1.30. I didn't say don't get them from Santander. I said don't buy them from the software supplier. It's a good tip. Data ownership is a big problem as well. Of course, the faculties hate each other, and therefore getting them to work on a university-wide system is a real challenge. When I do my consultancy, I spend 90% of my time trying to get people to understand and change how they work, and 10% of my time worrying about the silly smart card and what data we put in which fields. That's the truth. Last big message. When I look at you, you are the wrong audience. You're mostly over 30. You still have wristwatches. You probably use your mobiles for only 3 or 4 things. And you use email. You know, look at it from the student's point of view. For students, the future is mobile. The future is probably NFC, and if you don't believe in it, keep patient. It's only been around 10 years. Soon it'll be there. That will revolutionize the game. I may see long enough that all the card functionality that we've talked about sits inside the mobile, and you have already heard about that this morning. Believe me, the mobile is the future. New challenges, new opportunities. I must tell you a little story, and I know I'm running very late. There is an unofficial NFC pilot going on at a university I know well in England. The students with NFC-enabled mobiles, they go to their friend and they tap their friend's university card, they collect the identity details from that, and then they buddy tap. Do you understand that expression? Before the lecturer arrives, and he's always the last in the room, right? The student just goes with his mobile and taps his friend in. There you are, we have an NFC pilot already. Sadly, the university doesn't like that. What was the problem? They didn't encrypt the data before they gave it to the attendance readers, for example. So you must encrypt, otherwise people will copy, and buddy tapping is a big problem. Why will this happen? For one reason only: students will demand it. Never mind that you don't believe in it, never mind that it's difficult to understand. Your students live in that world, and with the mobile will come my next big prediction: biometrics. Apple didn't spend $500 million on buying authentic just for fun. One of the next, and Apple is really in a problem with its iPhone. It doesn't even have NFC. But soon you will find that when you switch the iPhone on, you will have to use a fingerprint. Maybe others will use voice. But as sure as I am standing here, you will all be involved soon with a proper form of secure verification. No more buddy tapping, no more remembering pins. It is the future. You can believe it or not. Take it from me. And I have one more message. Listen to the students. They have crazy questions to ask. What happens if I leave my card at home? They never leave their mobile at home. Of course, they go back to collect it. That's valuable. What happens if they leave their card? They can't buy lunch. They starve. They prefer cash. Can people steal my money by tapping my card with their mobile? There are many, many issues, and I'm not going to read. You know, we had one example. My card doesn't work. Why? Well, I microwaved it. Bless them. Don't you love students? Life at university would be so much easier without students, ladies and gentlemen. Higher Education Association, this is what we run in the UK. It has about 50 members. We've lasted 10 years. Most of those are universities, but we also invite consultants and suppliers to join in, and it's money. And there's one of our meetings, which you can't read. And I didn't want to leave you without saying, we also in Cambridge, we have these old ones. We do have one or two newer ones. And Cambridge is really famous because that is the chair where Mr. Crick and Mr. Watson announced the invention of DNA. That's Cambridge. That's my presentation. All done. I hate questions.
Excuse me. So they ask from Twitter, how does a cashless camp organize the payment of taxes associated with services? The tax over food or photocopies is different.
Right. It's very easy. That has very little to do with the smart card. The smart card is the key. The central system knows the credentials and the entitlements of the user. So, for example, if you have lunch where there's VAT for the teachers but no VAT for the students, the card is used to make the payment. The system knows that that was a teacher's card. They charge VAT, etc., etc. And that's another example of exactly the same. It's all in the system.